Good morning, everybody. It's BDF44. Still laying in bed because I'm pretty tired, but did want to make a video this morning because I saw the highlights of Paul George return to basketball versus the New Orleans Pelicans in New Orleans. New Orleans is pretty depleted, so I wasn't looking at it as a real barometer for what defenses are going to be able to throw at him and all that. Nor am I looking at it, obviously, as him at his best because he just got back. But he did score up in the upper 30s, and he looked pretty good to start his Clipper tenure. I do think that the Clippers, even though it's popular at the moment to make fun of the fact that Kawhi Leonard is missing games, I think it's very easy to push the, hey, you guys aren't as good as you're supposed to be card their way because they're 7-4 at the moment. But to be completely honest with you, nothing that they're doing is off base, in my opinion. The smart thing to do when you have a player like Kawhi Leonard is to play him sporadically, especially since he's coming off a championship year. That was, basically him the year before that not playing at all. I think you're being smart, especially since the Toronto Raptors really did run him as far as they could take him. And so you want to kind of be smart with his minutes. You want to be smart with the games that he plays because you're playing for June. And the way your team is constructed, you don't want to just play for this June. You want to do this again next year as well if you're the Clippers and the years to come. So you have to be smart about how you play these players. Going out there just asking them to play 82 and all those days are done. Those days are done, people. I know that we are really, really into seeing players, win MVP trophies and play a full schedule. And of course, back in the day, that's how it was. Your best players play forever. You have guys like AC Green who played every game always and all of that. But the way that the NBA is set up now, they've learned over watching players fall apart, watching players' bodies just disappear on them, guys retiring early, that it really is smart to kind of manage the schedule if possible, even though it's against the NBA's desires. It's smart to do so. If you can cut players down to playing maybe only 70 games, 65 games, then when the playoffs come around, they're going to be more equipped to give you their best basketball. Not only that, but if you have aspirations of being a dynasty team or you think you have the talent to compete year in, year out, what you don't want to end up like is the Golden State Warriors, who were able to win 4 out of 5 championships. And then come year 6, everybody's gone because they're either left to make money elsewhere or injured because they've been worn out by playing into June every year for the past 5 years rather. I look at the Golden State Warriors and I see the lineups that they're putting down there. They've fallen off the map as fast as any team has since Michael Jordan's team fell off after he and Pippen left. I mean, this is horrible what's going on in Golden State, and it isn't in the form of the Bulls because the Bulls deliberately tore their team apart. Their team just fell apart because of the two things that I just said. Guys left, and guys were season-ending injuries. So you got to learn from that if you're the rest of the league, especially if you think you're as good as them or you think you have one of those teams that should be at the top of the league for the next several years. You got to learn from that. And you got to not make the mistakes that the Golden State Warriors made. They were so incredibly top-heavy, and they were so good that they didn't really focus on their farm system / G League system / drafting process. They didn't care anything about that. They had KD, they had Clay, they had Draymond, they had Steph, and it didn't really matter who else they put around them. They had, their role players that were, even though they were getting older, you had your Sean Livingston, your Iggy, and all of that, and then they were able to put players in here and there to kind of just fill out their bench. Guys were coming in like JaVale McGee, and then they'd leave, and you bring in somebody else. You had Quinn Cooks and all that. So it was like they didn't really care about trying to develop players on the back of the bench, and they didn't have the minutes to give to them anyway to make them better. So now when everybody is gone, what you're looking at is one of the worst teams in the league because, quite frankly, they haven't done much to do otherwise for themselves in losing all those players. So teams like the Clippers and the Lakers have to make sure that they're developing the players on the back of their bench. Every time they get an opportunity, they have to try to pour some energy and hire the right people to make sure that their scouting system is proper. Or once you do win that championship or 2 championships or get to the finals a couple times, your team is going to be awful. And that's what the Golden State Warriors have taught us. You got to focus on 2 things. One, managing your cap properly, even when you're at the top of the league, and managing your farm system, even if you're at the top, especially if you're at the top of the league. That way you don't have the huge fall off. So I look at the Clippers and I say, hey, it looks like they're trying to do things the right way. As far as is managing the players that they have, being that they have a balanced team. They're allowing Kawhi Leonard to not play so much because they know they're going to need him in June. They know they're going to need him in May. Like, that's going to be obvious. They're going to be around. It's going to be the Lakers, the Clippers, and I don't know if anybody else in the Western Conference could even look at one another at that point. I think they're extremely top-heavy, even though everyone says it's so much balance, this, that, and the third. Now that I'm seeing how things are starting to play out to start the season, barring any injury, it's going to be those 2 teams out of the West. So you have to understand that being that Kawhi Leonard has his injury issues and that Paul George has his injury issues, it doesn't really matter if they miss a game here or there, if they don't play against this team, if they don't play against that team. It doesn't matter. As long as they are upwards of 55, 50 wins a season, or even if they just make a playoffs, they're going to be better than most teams. Now, I've said at the beginning of the year, I said it in this offseason, they need to address their point guard position. I do not think Patrick Beverley is the answer, and I do not expect Paul George and Kawhi Leonard to set up no offense for them. Lou Williams, none of that. That's not going to be enough. They're going to have to address that. Their big man situation, I still think they need to address that. I do not think the Clippers are a finished product. They need to make a move before the deadline to try to get a point guard and facilitator or someone of that nature. In order for them to beat the Lakers, I think they need that. Because LeBron James and all these guys, what we have going on, we're cohesive out the gate. Now, although we're playing our guys more than they're playing their guys, we did give Anthony Davis a day off. But I think that we could use a little more load management for our superstars as well. Not care so much about the Golden State Warriors games. Not care so much about playing against teams that are not very good right now. We can win those games, we can lose those games. They may matter, they may not. But I think this is a very unique situation as to where if we expect the Clippers to come out of the Western Conference, then we have home court advantage either way. You know what I mean? Like, this is the only time that the Lakers can honestly say, if they don't have home court against the Clippers, it literally does not matter. Because the arena's theirs and the routine, which is more important than anything else. They're not catching flights anywhere. You're not breaking your routine to get to the Clipper arena. That's the most important aspect of it. When you're an athlete, you want to be able to stay in your routine and not have to go through the whole process of staying in hotels and all of that, going through different weather conditions and things of that nature. If that series were to take place, that eliminates all of that. Sure, you want to have your home floor, and it does make some difference in theory. But being that the Clippers and the Lakers have never played each other in the playoffs, you don't know how much of a difference it actually will make. You just don't know. But you do know that they get to sleep in their own beds, et cetera, et cetera. So, with that being said, home court advantage is still very important when you're talking about going up against other teams. But when you're talking about going up against the Clippers particularly, I think more important than having home court advantage is just making sure you're healthy by the end of the year. So, yeah, man, I'm not mad at the Clippers for what they're doing. As an analyst, as a fan, you know how I feel. I've spoken about it, but that's just not the mindset I'm in. I'm just analyzing what they're doing, watching how they're moving through the beginning of the season, and understanding that being that Paul George is just now coming back, it really wasn't a smart move for Kawhi Leonard to only play about half the games to start the season, because they were only at half mass anyway. It just didn't matter. They weren't running their full stuff. They're not out there, getting to it like they will. And it ain't quite that necessary. It's a very long season. They got a lot of basketball to play. A lot. The whole league is just at the beginning. Even though we assess these teams as we believe things are shaping up, A lot of times things change quickly in the NBA. Sometimes they change gradually, and by the end of the season, somebody you thought wasn't doing anything starts to rise and make some noise. So you just got to manage the roster, manage the schedule as best as you can. So yeah, that's what I got to say, man. Paul George looked pretty good to start out. I mean, really good to start out. They did lose the game against the Pelicans, so that probably wasn't what they were hoping for. But I think the most important thing for that team is to just get Paul George back on the basketball floor, continue to manage both of their games and minutes, he and Kawhi Leonard, and just get through the first half of the season as one of the better top 5 teams in the Western Conference. Because after that, then they can start buckling down, playing the defense we know that they're capable of, slashing all over the floor as 2 of the best, forward guard tandems in quite a while. Positionless players that you've seen in a while. They have the makings of the Bulls light, I guess is what I'll call it. The Scottie Pippen, Michael Jordan kind of tandem. They're built that way. So we know what they're going to look like if they all click and they all are healthy at the same time. And the balance is try to force that to happen and force them to peak at the right time, which is around playoff time. So if you're a Clipper fan and you're sitting up here, you're a little disappointed. Obviously, you understand that Paul George and Kawhi Leonard haven't played a single game together. So it's going to take some time for them to get acclimated with one another, for your coach to then get used to what it looks like to have a rotation with those 2 players being managed, for them to figure out how they're going to run their offense, who's going to take what shot. Are they going to be a type of team that goes back and forth in terms of having their defense turn into their offense, a fast break situation, or is it going to be more like what we saw in OKC with a few years ago with KD and Westbrook taking turns and things of that nature? They got to find out what kind of system they're going to run together. So what we've seen so far is Kawhi Leonard's Clippers, which is a pretty solid team. And yesterday we saw Paul George Clippers, which we can't really assess just yet. But when you get Paul George and Kawhi Leonard on the floor at the same time, and they're able to double team superstars, and they're able to score 40 points both in the same game, then we'll understand what it is that the Clippers have put together. And so, yeah, that's what I got to say, you guys. Hope everyone's enjoying their Friday. It's Friday for me. I don't know what day you're watching this, but it's my off day. So I'm going to try to get my workout done at some point. I'm so exhausted, man. But nevertheless, still excited about this NBA season and looking forward to seeing how it all plays out. Thanks for watching. It's BDF 44. Peace.